And now I'm very happy to introduce Ed Cotter, someone I've worked with for many, many years, to talk about the opportunities around funding this, because one of the things obviously we need to look at is, well, how do we fund some of these initiatives or these processes and systems? Ed, over to you.
Thanks, Robin. Just checking that you can see my screen. Excellent. Okay, so we've heard some fantastic initiatives from a range of brilliant speakers. If you're a business or a property owner or a consultant, you may be wondering, how do you fund one of those projects to help achieve some of those initiatives or objectives that you want around reducing food loss and waste and improving waste reduction? Or you might be a council and you're thinking, how can we help stimulate and support local businesses, and what are the ways that they could look at funding it? So I'm going to talk a little bit about environmental upgrade finance and the benefits. Also talk about who we are and what we do. But before I do that, I would also like to pay my respects to the traditional owners on the land on which I'm located, and acknowledge them and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So a bit about Better Building Finance. So we really are third-party administrators that support businesses and help them in an efficient and easy way gain access to funding to deliver outcomes for their sustainability initiatives or projects. And we do that in partnership with a range of different councils and lenders. The timeline there at the bottom gives you a bit of an overview of how we've evolved over the years after being set up by the City of Melbourne and who we're working with. Our large base is based out of Victoria, where we work with over 42, 43 councils throughout the state, but we also work with other councils in New South Wales and South Australia, and we've just supported the Queensland government pass legislation to open up upgrade finance in Queensland as well. So you might be asking, what is environmental upgrade finance? Quite simply, it's a green loan. It's a green loan for upgrades on an existing building. And it is quite an interesting initiative because it has very attractive terms that go beyond some of the traditional forms of finance. It's limited to non-residential buildings at this point in time, but is also available or will be available in the future for residential too down the track. Just something to bear in mind there. One of the key things that's really important to understand with upgrade finance is the role of council in helping to secure the loan against the property by placing a charge against the property, which shows up on what's called a land information certificate or any inquiry for the sale of the property. That means that repayments are then made via council on a quarterly basis at the same time as a business may pay their rates. So it's quite a unique initiative, but it provides a range of really attractive options as a result of that. So most of the loans that you might see out there, such as asset finance initiatives or extension of a mortgage or business overdraft, have relatively short terms and really limit the ability of the business to actually access longer term options and ensure that that doesn't have a big impact on their cash flow. The benefits with upgrade finance for businesses include some of the following. Terms of up to 20 years. And what does that mean? That means that it becomes quite a positive option for a business to look at their cash flow and having a positive outcome as part of that. So in other words, the savings from the project more than cover the cost of loan repayments. Because it's secured against the property, it also provides relatively competitive interest rates. It enables the project to be funded 100% of it, so there's no requirement for equity or a deposit or any contribution from the local business themselves. So that means they're not out of pocket up front, which is really important. So, for example, you might be a retail or hospitality business located in the centre of Greater Dandenong. You might have an issue with your food waste, and you might engage with David and the Waste Master to actually look at going down the path of installing a food processing unit. On top of that, you then may consider actually funding the installation of solar to help power that food waste processor. So all of this can be done under an EUA, upgrade finance, but the business won't be able to pocket up front. It doesn't have a direct impact on their cash reserves, but also then has a positive impact potentially on their operational costs down the track. And in addition, if there are, say, for example, environmental health issues, it might ensure that they're able to actually comply and meet those requirements as well from the local council or EPA, et cetera, et cetera. A couple of other benefits and reasons why businesses choose this form of finance include the ability to share the cost with tenants. So what does that mean? That means that if a business is renting the property and doesn't own it, they can actually make the repayments on behalf of the property owner who owns the property. So that gets around some of the concerns about actually enabling the business to go ahead and do those upgrades to the building itself when the landlord may not necessarily be benefiting directly. In addition to that, a really interesting initiative out of this is the fact that at the point of sale of the property, the business has the option to either pay out the loan or transfer it across to the purchaser of the property. That purchaser then can pick up the loan repayments, and that means that the business then isn't out of pocket. It's quite an interesting way of looking at it, because that means that the business may be considering to do, for example, a range of different initiatives like solar, batteries, or EV, but they're growing quite rapidly. They may not want to necessarily invest because they think that in 2 to 3 years' time, they may have outgrown the premise that they're currently operating out of. Upgrade finance gives them that option to then go and do those works with the confidence in knowing that they're not going to be stuck with an asset that they're not getting the benefit of. So another way for them to actually tap into this and actually ensure that there's fair value for the investment that they've made up front. From a food and waste perspective, I just wanted to touch on some of the key drivers, picking up on some of the stats and information that Robin's touched on, as well as what Susie and Raquel have spoken about previously. I'm going to introduce the concept of ecological footprinting and what that actually means. Quite simply, an ecological footprint really just talks about resource consumption and resource consumption and the available resources within the realm of the planet itself. So the average Australian footprint is about 7.1 global hectares. That's the amount of space required to support the average Australian in terms of resource consumption, or that translates to about 4.4 planets worth of available resources. The graph down the bottom, the little pie chart there, demonstrates that food and associated waste accounts for about 30% of that total footprint for the average Australian. Interesting to note that if you cut meat out of your diet, that would account for half of that reduction of that 30% from a food consumption perspective. I'm not advocating that everybody give up eating meat, but just be a little bit more conscious and aware of what you're putting in your mouth. Maybe have a good quality steak every once in a while rather than having meat on your plate 7 nights a week or something like that. So what types of projects can be funded using upgrade finance? I won't go into the detail here, but we've done a fair bit of work. Most of the projects that we see coming through are really driven by solar, and we're starting to see a lot around battery storage and electric vehicles coming through. But other initiatives such as food processing, waste management systems, green walls, et cetera, can all be funded using upgrade finance. The key thing out of all of this is that it delivers a measurable environmental benefit. A couple of the case studies, and I won't spend too much time because I'm very, very keen to get to the Q&A session with the rest of the panel. This one is Hussey & Co, located on the Mornington Peninsula. They're a salad mix and leaf manufacturer, a large agricultural property down in Borneo. You can see from the photo there. They started off, they had quite an energy intensive operation. They started off with a small 99 or 100 kilowatt system to sort of get a bit of an understanding of how upgrade finance might support their operations and reduce their electricity consumption. And that's the solar array on the shed there that you can see. They saw the benefit of it pretty quickly and then reinvested and went back and put in a ground-mounted system after completing an energy audit. And that's the 500 kilowatt or half a meg system. And they're going to save quite a significant amount of operational costs moving forward. So a great little initiative using upgrade finance to help fund that particular project. One of my favourites, it involves booth transport, and involves the Strathmerton water treatment plant located out in Strathmerton in the area of Moira. This is a 4,500 square metre worm farm. It has a 10-year EUA, and it's a wastewater treatment facility to ensure that the water is made safe for irrigation purposes. This again was with second EUA. They started off with another 99 kilowatt solar system, but this is a little bit different and just shows the range of different projects that can be funded using upgrade finance. And it's also one of my favourites because it had a whole range of other benefits associated with not just water reduction, but also reducing emissions, improving health and safety, and taking trucks off the road as well. I'll keep moving forward quickly. Benefits for council. There's a whole range of benefits here. Get in contact with me if you're a council rep and want to talk a little bit more about it. A couple of case studies here, and I'll share the slides as part of the pack that's circulated after the event. Mornington, one of the leaders in this space, they've obviously incorporated upgrade finance as part of their broader community emissions plan or climate emergency strategy. They're doing some great stuff in this space. Another one is Sierra Rangers, and they too have incorporated into their livable climate plan. And as you can see from the stats down the bottom, some really fantastic benefits for business and reducing emissions from that perspective as well. I won't dwell too much more on this because of the time, but I just wanted to say this type of finance is really quite innovative, and it's an initiative that businesses should take advantage of because it aligns quite closely with a lot of the objectives that we've been talking about today in terms of resource consumption, emissions, et cetera, It's something that aligns really nicely with these climate bonds and green bond standards, and it's something that we're very supportive of with all these initiatives and all the councils and businesses that have been here today. If you want to find out more, if you're a business, go to the Sustainable Australia Fund page. If you're a council, get in contact with me and we can walk you through the next steps in the process.
Thank you, Ed. Great to hear, particularly not just about the finance, but about all those case studies. And it's been fascinating to see over the last 3 years how what was originally seen as something essentially for commercial office has grown and is covering, nurseries and agricultural food production and lots more types of project and a lot more heritage buildings as well, which from, a food and beverage and retail and hospitality perspective is a really important thing that we need to tackle because often they don't have the space to install, waste or food loss management systems. But I know that Wastemaster has newer, smaller products, and we can start to work with more heritage projects as we go.